Apple, one of the biggest tech companies in the world. It makes millions and millions of iPhones every year, competing to be the best. But what was it like before its fame? Welcome to Tech Through Time. April 1st, 1976. Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and Ronald Wayne, with the help of venture capitalist Armand Clifford Mike McCullough, found Apple Computer to market the Apple I. Wayne drops out after a few weeks because he doesn't want to take the risk as a family man. In May 1976, Woz presents the Apple I at the meeting of the Homebrew Computer Club. The computer costs $666.66. Paul Terrell, head of chain Byte Shop, places 50 orders alone. In total, about 200 devices are sold. April 1977. Apple launches the Apple II. The Apple II series was an open system, which means that all essential construction details were published. This construction principle was later copied by IBM and marketed as the IBM PC. The Apple II became the first widely distributed microcomputer, and it cost around $1,300 at launch. In 1978, Jeff Raskin starts at Apple Computer. Raskin was Apple Computer's 31st employee. It's manager of publications and manager of the Macintosh project from 1979 to 1982. 1979. A research project for a new low-cost computer is started under the direction of Jeff Raskin. This would later become the Macintosh project. Raskin leaves Apple in 1982, even before the Mac was launched, because he would not accept Steve Jobs' meddling. In June of 1979, the Apple II Plus is launched for $1,200, $100 cheaper than the original Apple II. In July 1979, the project for Apple Lisa is started. The computer was supposed to be ready in March 1981. In fact, it took until January 1983. Steve Jobs and his team at Apple visit the legendary research institute Xerox PARC, where they see several novel technologies. These include the Xerox Alto, the first personal computer with a graphical user interface, the computer mouse, and the object-oriented program. Computer mouse, they never really learned how to do really well, it seems. 1980. Specifications for the Apple Lisa are developed. It includes several features that Apple employees have seen at Xerox PARC. On December 12, 1980, Apple goes public, floating 4.6 million shares of stock at $22 per share. The Apple IPO makes some rich, others mad. 1981. Steve Jobs takes over the Macintosh project. IBM announces its PC. Apple welcomes IBM to the PC market in an ad. This ad reads, "Welcome, IBM, seriously. Welcome to the most exciting and important marketplace since the computer revolution began 35 years ago." Continues along for a while, but I'll put it in our website so you can see the full thing for yourself. In 1983, the Apple Lisa hits the market on January 22nd, 1983, for $10,000. As sales falter, the price drops to $7,000 by the end of the year. At Apple, previously competing Lisa and Mac divisions are merged. In April, Steve Jobs convinced PepsiCo president John Sculley to join Apple. Do you want to sell sugar water for the rest of your life, or do you want to take a chance and change the world? Was Jobs' legendary question, which ultimately won Sculley over as Apple CEO. In order to qualify for the Cannes Advertising Film Festival, Apple had the famous Big Brother commercial for Mac in December 1983 on TV station KMVT in Twin Apple Lisa, 1983, Falls, Idaho. On January 22nd, 1984, 6 weeks later, the commercial was aired during a commercial break in the Super Bowl. The ad not only cleared Cannes, but also was repeatedly aired by TV stations in the news. The Chiat/Day agency calculated that the 1984 spot generated over $5 million worth of free publicity. 1984. January 24th, 1984. The Mac is launched for $3,000. The Apple Lisa II retails for $4,000. Apple launches the Test a Mac promotional program. Customers can take a Mac home from a retailer for 24 hours to try it out, free of charge. Although promotion was unique and innovative up to that point, the program does not show any desired success. For one thing, too few Macs are initially available, and many customers do not bring the computers back to the stores in perfect condition, incurring significant repair costs. April 24th, 1984. Apple IIc is introduced. With a different Apple II series, Apple does the main part of its business. 1985. Sales of the Mac falter because too few applications are available. After a power struggle with the then Apple CEO, John Sculley, Steve Jobs is relieved of his operational duties. Jobs leaves Apple and founds the computer company Next Inc., and uses the proceeds from stock sales to buy Lucasfilm's animation division, creating Pixar. Here's a quote from Steve Jobs. "As you know, the company's recent reorganization left me with no work to do and no access even to regular management reports. I am but 30 and still want to contribute and achieve." This was a letter to Mike Marcola. The Apple Lisa is also discontinued. Some models are converted and sold as the Mac XL. Microsoft licenses some of its Mac technologies to develop its Office package for the Mac. At the end of 1985, Microsoft publishes its first Windows version 1.01. 1987, Apple builds the Mac II, the first Mac that does not rely on an all-in-one design. The Mac II can also support color displays. At the same time, Apple launches the Mac SE with the classic all-in-one design. Both machines allow expansion slots to be added to the Macs for the first time. The installed base of Mac users grows to 1 million. Ross Perot invests $20 million in Next Inc. In August 1987, Microsoft releases its first version of Windows, but it's virtually unusable. 1988, the greatly improved Windows 2.03 is released. Apple sues Microsoft over various similarities between Windows and Mac OS. Microsoft counters the counterclaim and refers to a license agreement from the year 1985. A protracted legal battle ensues, with Apple unable to stop the further development of Windows. Microsoft prevails in court in 1992 and also wins the appeal 2 years later. In 1995, the U.S. Supreme Court confirms the rejection of the appeal. In 1989, Xerox sues Apple over the user interface of the Mac and Apple Lisa. The suit is dismissed a year later. Apple Computer is also sued by Apple Corp's Lieutenant, a Beatles record label, for trademark infringement. In 2006, the Beatles lose. In 2010, the advisories come to an agreement. The agreement stipulates that in the future, California-based Apple Incorporated, formerly Apple Computer Incorporated, will own all rights to the Apple trademark and the Apple logo, and will license some usage rights from the Beatles record company's Apple Corp's Lieutenant in return. Apple disposes of unsold models of the Lisa in a landfill in Logan, Utah. Apple introduces the Macintosh Portable. The device weighs around 7 kilograms and was initially shipped without a backlight on the screen. As a result, the Portable barely lived up to its name and did not sell very well. In 1990, Steve Jobs introduces the Next Station for $5,000, a year after introducing the Next Step OS operating system. Apple draws conclusions from the Portable debacle and launches the much lighter and more compact PowerBook 100, the first true Mac notebook. In 1992, Apple sets new standards with the Subnote family PowerBook Duo. A docking station ensures that several interfaces do not have to be present in the PowerBook Duo itself in order to save weight and space. Apple and Novell launched a Star Trek project, which aims to get Macintosh operating system running on Intel hardware. A first proof of concept is created. However, the project is abandoned in 1993. Microsoft launches Windows 3.1 and increasingly competes with Apple. In 1993, Apple delivers the first Power Macintosh models. These computers no longer contain a 680 by 0 processor from Motorola, but the more modern PowerPC chips produced by Motorola and IBM. Apple launches the Apple Newton PDA at the Macworld Expo in Boston in August 1983. The futuristic device proves to be little success in business because important features such as handwriting recognition work only moderately. The Newton flop is also undetermined Apple CEO John Sculley's position of power. Michael Spindler, who is also the Diesel at Apple, replaces Sculley as Apple's chief executive. Sculley remains chairman for now. In 1994, the first DOS-compatible Mac, the Quadra 610, is introduced. It contained a second motherboard and other components to run DOS and early Windows versions in parallel to the Mac OS. This is followed by a handful of Macs that are also DOS-compatible. Apple licenses its operating system, Mac OS, to selected Mac clone manufacturers like Power Computing or UMacs, with Apple retaining control over key components of the hardware design used by the licenses. Codenamed Copland, this is Apple's first attempt to replace its aging operating system. In the operating system version macOS 7.5, Apple introduces the tools Mac Easy Open and PC Exchange. They allow the exchange of floppy disks and files with PCs running DOS or Windows. 1995, Power Computing ships its first Mac clones, Power, PowerWave, and PowerCurve. In August 24, 1995, Microsoft launches Windows 95 with a huge publicity show. Here's what it says. This is what Apple has written about it. Introducing Windows 95. It lets you use more than 8 characters to name your files. It has a trash can you can open and take things out of again. It lets you drop files anywhere you want on the desktop. Imagine that. So that was obviously Apple taking a jab at Microsoft because it was able to do all those things. In 1996, the PowerBook 1400 becomes the first Mac notebook to ship with an internal optical drive. Apple freezes development of Copland and began searching for companies that can provide a technical foundation for the next generation of an operating system. The company B Inc., which had been founded by former Apple manager Jean-Louis Gasset, is shortlisted. The company had developed the BEOS. Apple CEO Michael Spindler is replaced by Gil Amelio. 1997, Apple introduces the Power Mac G3. It's the first Mac with the Power PC G3 processor. To mark the 20th anniversary of Apple's founding, the 20th anniversary Mac is released. And in an all-in-one design, Apple installs an LCD front panel display for desktop Macs for the first time. This anniversary Mac costs a whopping $7,500. For that, customers get a setup through the concierge service. Later, the price of the Spartius drops significantly. Apple surprisingly decides against BEOS and takes over Next in order to use the Next operating system, OpenStep, as a basis for its new own operating system. This deal also brings Steve Jobs back to Apple, initially as a consultant. Apple announces Rhapsody, the code name for the new macOS based on the Next OpenStep for developers. Apple releases macOS 8 and names it originally intended to use for the Copland system, since the clone license agreements are tied to macOS 7.x. This move marks the beginning of the end of the Mac clone era. Gil Amelio resigns as the Apple CEO and makes room for Steve Jobs at the top of the company. In 1998, Steve Jobs transforms Apple's openings, saying goodbye to products like the Apple Newton and introduces the iMac as the cornerstone of Apple's product line. This is the first Mac with a USB and SI port. UMacs discontinues the last Mac clone, the Super Mac. In 1999, the Power Mac G3 Blue and White was introduced. The clever tower design with an easy open latch, the Mac is easy as an upgrade or a repair. The first iBook picks on a colorful design of the first iMac and is designed to strengthen Apple's position in the market. The first iMac in the education market has been made again. The Macintosh hardware comes with a multimedia software package. iMovie was introduced in October 1999, which made it convenient to edit home videos. Later came iDVD for semi-professional DVD productions, with iPhoto, GarageBand, and iWeb. The iLife package was then put together. The Mac thus evolved into the hub of digital life. And as this continued, Apple just grew more and more. And after that, the rest is history.